welcome. Today I am doing a chat with Melissa. We'll be talking about conscious relating or conscious relationships. This will be a fun chat if you're able to stick around at all and contribute. These are always roundtable conversations. I always love when people are able to share and offer their own insights and reflections. So, hey, Melissa. And you and I, we just sort of kind of got each other. I feel like we really saw each other and tended to agree or at least understand each other. That's how we became connected. And then we decided we wanted to talk about something. And I don't remember how that even came up, that particular inspiration. But what I wanted to ask you about was when we were talking about doing a joint live stream, you were like, hey, let's talk about conscious relationships, or would you want to talk about that? So I'm curious, what inspired you to talk about this specifically?
I think because at the time you were talking about it. I think there was a post, or there was like a week in which you were kind of talking about conscious relationship, and so I was like, all right, let's talk about that since it's hot, in the field. But also right now it seems, just with the energetic nature of what's going on in the collective, there's a lot of divine union energy. So it could be helpful to kind of navigate people with this conversation. And I know you and I tend to see eye to eye in this conversation, so I thought it'd be fun. But we can also just flow and let it go where it wants to go.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's something that's very, I don't want to say in our faces, but a very common theme that we're seeing, especially right now in the conversations online. And no doubt, obviously, always a theme in the collective about working through relationships in a conscious way. And I feel like that's what I was alluding to-ish, like earlier this week when I had to, when I did the live stream, and I was just kind of coming up with something to talk about on the fly. And I was thinking to myself, like, and I want to hear what your opinion is. I feel like kind of in the spiritual or conscious or woke communities, we can sort of imagine or envision this conscious relationship. Like we identify and define, like, this is a conscious relationship and this isn't. And my experience, and I'm still learning, right? So I don't know how this looks for everybody else. And I'm also single and have been relatively-ish for like 5 years. So it could be very different for people who are in relationships. However, I have found that as opposed to there being like a bad kind of relationship and a quote unquote good one or conscious one, it's more about us bringing consciousness into any relationship. And there is no like bad person, wrong person. Now, with that said, I even said in the live stream earlier this week, I'm not saying that we choose unsafe people where we are physically or emotionally unsafe. Like, that's obvious. We're going to put that aside. But in most other relationships, even if they are difficult, it's like, really, we're going to face the baggage and the BS no matter who we choose. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, and if you have any inspirations from that thought. But that's sort of where I was going earlier this week when I was talking about it on my
own. Yeah, I do actually, and it's interesting because as I was driving into my office this morning, I was getting this download about it, and then it came up again with my client I just had. So I'm like, okay, so this is really alive in the field. But also what I truly feel. I feel that often we will stay in things. So like, let's just put the example of, I know you're getting the delay and that's funny, but let's put the example of you're with someone and you're being triggered. And you're constantly having to close your heart because of this relationship that really isn't in flow or in sync with your desires or your heart or even your energetic nature, right? So often we may stay in those dynamics. And I think this is where we get in the good bad part. Like, this is a bad relationship. But really, you could change your perspective, like you're saying, and be able to meet that relationship with higher consciousness. But it's also a relationship, so that other person has to be willing to meet you there. And this is where we have the decision to either stay and meet each other in higher consciousness, or we have the decision to leave and trust the unknown that we're going to find that what we desire, which is more in alignment, that isn't going to be asking us to close our heart due to all of these struggles. And really following that open-hearted experience and being able to be in relationship in that conscious awareness. So that's how I see it. Like, there's always a choice, but you should also like not stay in things that are obviously contracting your energy, closing your heart, asking you to stay in struggle. So yeah, what do you think as far as that goes?
So I loved everything that you shared, because exactly, right, we can encounter these challenges or struggles in relationships, and we can sort of assume like, oh, this must be bad, or something is wrong. But like you said, when we do our own inner work to shift into that higher perspective, because of course in any conflict there is a greater opportunity for union and deeper intimacy there, or like an upgrade in frequency, that's always there. So it's like, is it going to break down, or are we going to break through this together? And a lot of people, like you said, they'll choose to break down, like this, this relationship might have to end, this isn't working. Or like you said, one person might be like, you might be willing, but I'm ready to go. And of course, that's honoring each person and their path and their choice. But there is an opportunity there for breakthrough and for both people. And I think that's usually nowadays sort of, because I think we swing with the pendulum, right, from either extreme, where people are kind of like staying in relationships until like it's way expired, aka they've been through many breakdowns, someone isn't doing the work, they're not meeting them there, so on and so forth. Or we see the opposite, where everyone's like Queen of Swords, like in the tarot, like I'm done, I'm done, like you're always done. And then is there any growth happening, and are you really just refusing transformation, and on, right? And so I like how you put it, that there's an opportunity there to shift perspective and really transform with someone. And so it's really a matter of, is that person willing to meet you there? Can you both do that together? I feel like I used to be the person who was on the side of like, oh, I'll put up with anything, and I'm going to love you forever, and whatever, who knows. And then I sort of gone to the other side, I think, in the dating game. And that's sort of what I'm realizing, and why I was sharing on it, where I was hoping and waiting for like this conscious relationship. Like I was waiting for it to feel different. And then I realized, oh, wait, it's always going to be challenge and growth and transformation, like especially the kind of person that I am. And I think that I was waiting for it to like be easy. Like I think that was just my own personal thing that I had going on. And now I'm realizing, there can be consciousness here, conscious relationship, but it doesn't mean this is going to be easy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's kind of that love and light stuff, right? That new age ideology that it's just supposed to be lollipops and rainbows all the time. And that's just not the nature of our experience as humans. So to expect that relationship is going to just be lollipops and rainbows because we've accomplished some level of consciousness is a fairy tale, because we're still humans. We still have shadow. And when you come into a relationship, what comes up first? All the shadow stuff. So, I mean, of course we're going to deal with it. It's just, how are we going to deal with it together? And so I just still come back to, can I keep my heart open? Can I meet you with my heart open? Can I fully be expressed, especially as a woman? Like, I want to feel expressed. I want to feel witnessed and seen. And can I do that for my partner? And if the dynamic in the relationship is stuck and stagnant and I can't shift it, that's when we start having the conversations of like, maybe this isn't in alignment anymore, but otherwise I think there's always an opportunity, which is what I'm hearing you say too. Like, can you see the opportunity? Can you see the gift? Can you, but it's, when are you, like you said, staying too long? Because I've been that person too, holding on to hope that it'll change when there's clear signs that it's not going to. I think as a collective, though, we've reached a state where I think we're moving through these layers quicker. So I think we see these things if we should get into it. But I think also when you get to a certain developmental stage in your own being, that we kind of don't go there anymore. It's like we're constantly up leveling. So I don't know if you've had that experience, but it kind of sounds like you have. What do you think?
Loving everything that you're sharing. I so love it. First of all, I just love you and just who you are, your presence, your wisdom. Like, we've always loved each other on posts, but like experiencing you here is like, oh. That's great.
I
It's a
agree.
dream. So thank you for being here. I'm just really appreciating you and what you're sharing and everything. But I love what you said about, keeping our hearts open. That's key. I think there's, in terms, because I was sort of speaking to my own experience, and one of the reasons I do that is because I like to keep things like really grounded and real for people and practical. And I want people to know, like, this is all like the real deal, And I know you and I tend to talk very practically and authentically too, which I love so much. But like in my experience as of late, where I'm finding what you're talking about, right? I'm finding that kind of like these extremes that we talked about, and seeing like where there's an opportunity for breakdown or breakthrough, keeping our hearts open, but then recognizing, and each of us might have to decide or discern that for ourselves. Where is that breakdown, or where is it? Where's that line where it's now gone too far, or they're clearly not meeting me? I know Holly says energetic misalignment in relationships have taught me so much. My next growth curve will be to express that in relationships rather than stay when it's not right for me. Yeah, Holly, so I know you've been in the situation that I'm speaking to, where it's like we stay in those relationships long after their expiration date. And then it becomes sort of like a soul suck, and it does steal from our life force, and things start to stagnate for us as an individual when we remain in partnership with these people. And it's just like being really honest and transparent with ourselves. And I know one of the challenges that I've had as I expanded to greater consciousness and relationships on the dating scene, which is like a whole, like, do I want to say it's like a minefield? But it's just like I think I'm an old soul. I don't think I'm meant for app dating and such. And then I start wondering, like, I don't know. That's a little. Oh, I won't go down that rabbit hole. But I'm starting to. I get to this point because you gain such an ability, right, to hold all perspectives. This is where I want to ask you your opinion too, Melissa. Where like I feel like I can see or hold every perspective, at least what's available to me. I'm able to see up and down. I can see where I'm projecting, but I can also see where I'm valid and validate and acknowledge myself, and see where what I'm saying, quote unquote, might be true. I'm also able to see where the other person is standing in some truth. I can acknowledge and validate them. And where I find that I come to an impasse in these sort of conscious relationships is that at times when it's almost like, what's the truth? If it's all true, right? Then what is true in the moment? Like, for example, let's just, there's a disagreement or an argument between two parties, right? There's some kind of disagreement. You're not seeing it the same way, but one person is really maintaining like it's this way or it has to be this way. And I'm over here, let's just say like, oh, well, I see that and I see this. And you know what? Because I am seeing that I'm projecting, let me take a look at what I am projecting and where maybe some of this is coming from, kind of find the root cause and really find some deeper awareness for myself. But if the other person isn't doing that work either, that's again maybe another example where we find there might be a political, probably you were saying, misalignment, and or maybe this person isn't actually willing to meet you, or maybe they're not available, they don't know any better, they don't know how to do that work. That's what I've been finding. It's like I'm able to see like all the sides and find this common universal understanding, even if we don't agree. And I find that I enter into these relationships where maybe it is the other person. I don't even know if I'm making sense, but I'm just kind of sharing my experience and seeing what, if anything, you have to share on that, and it comes up for you.
Yeah. So I actually was dating someone briefly and had that similar experience where I was really in the fire with a lot of stuff coming up for me. And I was really willing to process it and look at it and sit in the fire with it. And that person was really willing to like meet me there and process my stuff. But then when the table kind of started turning and we started looking at the other person's stuff, that's when it was like he wasn't willing to look at all of it. And so then I was like, well, wait a second. Like, and I think that can be also an interesting dynamic, because one person might be really willing to sit in the fire and the other person may feel really uncomfortable, or they're not ready. And this is I kind of talk about, we're just not ready. And I think often we're finding now where we might be ready and the other person just isn't. And so then we have to then accept the nature of like where this person's at. And so we can either accept like, okay, they're not ready, they're not going to go here, and we can just let it go. Or if it's really causing problems, that would be kind of like what you're saying, like that's when we go, okay, this isn't in alignments anymore. And also we have to kind of listen to what people show us about themselves always, right? And so it can be an interesting road when we start seeing the other side of the coin. So I don't know if I'm making sense with that too, but I think we're kind of talking about the same thing.
We are talking about the same thing, and I love how you articulate it. So like, yes. Like we get to a point in our journey where we can sit in our own shit or whatever, sit in the fire for a second and be like, all right, like let's take a look at this. And like even that person will hold space for you, right? They're conscious enough, will say, to be there to hold space for that processing, for that journeying. But then when it's time for uh for us to perhaps look at them, or you would think like, okay, and who am I to say, right? And that's when I start getting in my head like, well, who am I to say that it's their turn? Like I'm owning it when it's my turn, but maybe it isn't their turn. Who am I to decide that it's their turn? So it gets so wishy-washy that I almost get to the point like I'm just like I start to feel like maybe you're insane.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, well, hello, could this all just be me? But then when I do see this ongoing or common pattern, okay, I can work through my stuff, the facts, right? Facts versus feelings. I can sit here and talk about my stuff and where this is all coming from. They validate me, they hold space for me. But if and when we also turn the tables for us to discuss, then there's a breakdown and or ongoing projection of like, well, this is actually your problem. And I found that in my most recent situation, and I'm still processing that, moving through it. But what I found was because of that ongoing dynamic, what I started to think of for a little bit when I was a little bit unconscious because I wasn't yet able to see clearly, I just needed some space, was I was like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Clearly, it's always coming back on me. I always have all this work to do, and it's more me doing my healing work. And it sort of reminds me of in the gaslighting conversation where it's like one person's always, I don't want to say in trouble, but you know, like you said in the fire, like figuring their stuff out or whatever. And yet, where's the accountability / responsibility of the other person? So ultimately, our situation did lead to a breakdown, but it led to a breakthrough for me personally. And so I want to share that as a message too for people that there's always a breakthrough available. Just because the other person declines it or denies it doesn't mean that we can't utilize that. I think it's sort of obvious shadow work one-on-one, but there's always something for us to be able to glean or gain from those experiences. So I found a lot of breakthrough in that around self-acceptance, you know, and even this conversation here, where is that line for me? What do I consider a breakdown? When is there, I'm not really willing to stick around anymore for a breakthrough. So that those are some of the things that I was working with when it comes to like this conversation and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I always try to trust that my higher divine plan is leading me towards, you know, what is best for me and that other person. And so perhaps our connection was to move through that lesson. But at the same time, I really think we're also getting to a point of where relationship doesn't have to be struggle all the time. And I think when we're in these constantly needing to process, constantly needing to be looking at the shadow, you know, like when it gets to that kind of point where it's always doing that, that's where it's like, what are we doing? Like we're not having fun anymore, you know? And so that I think for me personally, that's my breaking point is like, I want to be able, because I'm a free spirit and I like to have fun. Like if I'm not having fun anymore, like what are we doing? If it's constantly struggle and always playing in the dark, no, it's a no for me. But you know, it's also, I realize that that's part of it, but I also need to honor and value myself and that other person because it can't be fun for them either, right? If we're constantly dragging in the dark. So anyway, yeah, I love this conversation. Thank you for having me join. I'm sorry it took me so long to get on here and figure out technology. It's not my strong point. I just do magical stuff. So technology and me are not fun. But yes, I love this. I love the conversation, the magic we're creating, and I hope everybody is getting some insight and some love from us having this conversation today.
Catching up.
Yeah, I know.
Gosh, this is such a juicy conversation. Yeah, I love that you brought up too. If we're constantly like walking through the valley of the shadow of death, no, thank you. This ain't
Yeah.
it. You know, and that goes for both people. Like I know homeboy who I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death was kind of like, all right, like I've had enough, kind of thing. And it's interesting though. There are some people where that tends to be the primary thing, right? Over the dating scene where I've had some opportunity to meet different people, it's like you find some people that are primarily fun, right? They're not going to do like the deeper shadow diving or anything, and you kind of know everyone knows where they're at, like what this is for and that kind of thing. But then you encounter the people, you know, there's the whole spectrum. But then you have the other side where it's like always digging and excavating and shadow diving. And it's like no, like this isn't fun. There's got to be enough here on the other side to make this worth it. And that's even the point that I came to on that last live stream. I know you have to go here in about 5 minutes. Is I was like, just find, you know, when I was talking about the video, what I'm coming to, because I never want to assume I know someone else's path, but it's, you know, find that person that you want to do life with, that you want to share life with. See yourself sharing your life with this person. They are fun. They meet all those core values. You know, you can do life together and partner and create a vision, whatever your sort of core values are, whatever it is that you want, but definitely to that bond, and then realize that that can be a conscious relationship if you choose to bring consciousness to it. Because again, for a long time, and I see it all over the internet with a lot of my clients too, they're seeking to find this relationship, like, is it bad, kind of? It's like they've been through like the run-of-the-mill relationship and they're kind of over it, so they're thinking they're going to find a Jamie from Outlander and that's going to fix all their problems, when it's more of like, you know, just find your person, and then once that happens, be willing to do the work on the way. And so I think it's a little bit of a different approach than what I see a lot of, especially women, because that's who I hang out with, talk with, interact with, work with, where again are looking for like that knight in shining armor. And I don't know, you know, that the knight in shining armor exists as much as someone again that we bond well with, want to do life with, and then are willing to do the work with both of us together.
Yeah, I love all of that. So crucial. The other part that was coming in for me while you were talking about that is listening to your wisdom. Listen to your body. You know, when you're asking the question, is this the right relationship, or do I need to move on? Because if you, again, just get quiet, don't make decisions when you're in survival mode or stressed out or frazzled, obviously. But if you can get quiet and really tune into your heart, and I tell my clients to do this all the time, like get centered, breathe into your heart, connect into your body, and ask the question, because your body's going to tell you. You're going to get contracted or you're going to feel this openness, and you'll know right then which way you should move, or if you should stay or if you should go. And I think we forget that our bodies and our hearts and our higher selves, if we are in that connection, is very wise. And so it's just allowing ourselves to also tune into our inner compass and listen to our wisdom.
I totally agree with you. It's like our bodies will tell us, you know, if something's right for us or not. And I think sometimes too, it's like being gentle with ourselves and nurturing ourselves, because it's like because our belief system that sort of does exist / live within our bodies as well can assume fear where there is no actual fearful situation. But I think the key here is remembering for people that still, if your body's saying no, it just might not be the right time. And maybe it's not the right time to continually trigger yourself and maybe even re-traumatize yourself and on and on and on. Maybe it's not the right time for this level of whatever is happening with this relationship, or again, walking through that valley of the shadow of death. Because, you know, I know in my experience, I've encountered that, you know, entering into these connections and or potential relationships or whatever, and finding like time and again, you know, it was very much an intuitive no, and yet I was like, yeah, I should be ready by now, and this is all just fear. It's like, you know what? The self-compassionate, self-loving choice was turning back to myself, taking good care of myself, nurturing my nervous system, on and on and on. And again, that next opportunity will come, and we'll see if the body's ready then. We'll see if the vessel is available then. And if not, then so be it. And it's just remembering that self-love, even above all else, taking really good care of ourselves, even if it is that you're recognizing it's your own fears, your own past talking. Okay, well, maybe separate for a time to work through that. If it feels like, again, you're constantly either in battle and or your body's constantly contracting. that's not the right space, I don't think, for anybody, whether on their own or in a relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. I think it's really important to just honor where we're at in our journeys always. And remember that nothing is good, bad, right, wrong. It's just where you're at. And when you can accept that's where you're at and allow that to be the truth of the moment, then you're able then to kind of course correct, even, even if you are in your shadow, or if you're projecting, or whatever is going on for you. Like, you have to be able to take care of yourself to even show up in the way that you truly want to, or know that you can. Sometimes we just need space from whatever's going on, or maybe we need to leave that relationship, or maybe we need something else entirely. So it's just really trusting and listening to yourself, and knowing that you are wise and we are masterful, and that we're here learning every step of the way.
Gosh, isn't that the truth? A toast to that. Cheers.
Yeah.
Well, I have my
Yes.
water bottle, I guess. And, this is such a good, juicy, like, worthwhile conversation. I might even ask that, we do part 2 at some point in the future. If
Yeah.
it lands, if it resonates. And then if there's anything else, I don't know if you had anything like I want to make sure this is mentioned today, but I did want to leave some space. But if you had any like final thoughts, or like I wanted to make sure we talked about this. Thank you, Melissa. Gosh, it was such a joy talking with you. Absolutely loved it. Hopefully, we get around 2 here in the near future. And then anyone else who's here who wants to chat for a couple of minutes here on any of their own insights, reflections, comments based on what we were talking about today. And yeah, and I don't think we're supposed to be in like the battlefield. And if it feels like that, then we might need some support. If we're on our own, we're finding like, oh, wait, that's my life. And we're just more fun in general. And then if we're in a relationship, we recognize, okay, ask for core values or core desires. Is this what I really want? And most of us are going to say no. All right, everybody, I'm feeling like these are the last couple of comments that are coming through. So if you guys do have ongoing conversations, if you're on the replay, do add to this conversation. I'd love to hear from you and keep this going. In the near future, I'm sure Melissa and I will do another live stream. But if you did miss it, you can go back, watch the replay. All right, guys, until next time.